Hello guys, so I just want to show you something which I'm sure you're going to like. So this is like a bonus, okay, like a bonus video. Alright, so you remember this is how our program was after we applied input validation, okay, after we were preventing bad input from the user on the part of the age and on the part of the movie type, okay. This is how our program was, okay. So here actually we used the do. So this is how we wrote like this, and then here we wrote like this, okay. We wrote it like this, okay. And then when we are successful, we break out of our loop, okay. But if we are not successful, it means this function will throw a runtime error, and we catch it down here. We display an error message to the user, and then we are using a loop to be able to ask the user to enter the age again and again and again until when he finally enters the correct age and we are able to convert it into an integer. At that particular moment, we are going to break out of the loop, okay. So we did the same thing here. We were using an infinite loop to make sure that the user enters a correct movie type, okay, to make sure the user enters a correct movie type. So you will notice that I want to show you something here which I'm sure you're going to like, okay. I'm sure you're going to like this. So you remember I told you that what we are trying to do here on validating the movie type. You remember what we are trying to do here? It is very similar to what we are trying to do here. Can you see? Because this is also an infinite loop. This is also an infinite loop, only that this one is a while loop, this one is a do while loop, but they are all doing the same thing. They're just infinite. Get my point? They're infinite. And if you look inside, here we are telling the user enter your age. We are saving it as a string. We are trying to convert that into an integer. If we are successful, we break. If we are not successful, we cut the runtime error, we display this message. Do you see this logic? It is the same logic as this one here. We are displaying a message, enter a movie type. We are storing the type as a string. We are trying to convert it into an integer. If we are successful, we break out of the infinite loop. If we are not successful, we cut the runtime error, we display an error message to the user. Can you see? This logic is totally similar to this one here. So this is what I told you earlier. In programming, we say that do not repeat yourself. Do not repeat yourself. So instead of rewriting the same logic again and again and again, why not take that logic and put it into a function? Whenever you see yourself rewriting the same logic again and again, that is an indication that you have to put that logic into a separate function. That is another clue you need to know. We don't just write function in order to attain code modularity, but we also write functions in order to achieve code reuse. You get my point? So at this particular moment, we need to take this logic. Let me cut it. I'm going to put it into a separate function in order to be able to reuse it several times whenever I need to be able to get a valid integer from the user. I can just call that function. I can just call that function instead of having to rewrite that code, instead of having to rewrite that same logic again and again and again. You get my point? So I can just write a function here. I can say this function is called get a valid integer. You see, get a valid integer, okay? And this function is going to use an infinite loop to get a valid integer from the user. And this loop, we are going to break out of that loop the moment we succeed to get a valid integer from the user, okay? So here I'm going to define a variable. I'm going to call it input, okay? So I'm going to say that this function, okay, now if you look carefully, what is changing is just the kind of message we are trying to display to the user. So for example, on the part of age, we want to tell the user enter your age. You get my point? But in the part of movie type, we want to tell the user enter a movie type. You see? So that is the only thing which is changing, but the logic is totally similar. You get my point? So this part which is changing, why not make it a parameter of your function? You get my point? So here I'm going to say string, and I'm going to say prompt message. Okay? So here, instead of writing that message here, I'm just going to say see out the prompt message. You get my point? See out the prompt message. And then here I'm going to do something like this. Okay, I'm going to put a colon in front of that prompt message. You get my point? And then this variable here, I'm going to make it general. Okay, I'm going to make it general. So I'm going to make it input. You get my point? And then this one here, I'm going to make it, I say save it to input. So at first, I'm going to save it as a string, and then I'm going to try to convert that string into an integer. You see, if I succeed, I'm going to save it in my variable. I'm going to save that integer in my variable, and then once I save that integer in my variable, I'm going to break out of the infinite loop. I'm going to break out of the loop, so the loop will stop because I've succeeded. And once the loop stops, execution will continue outside the body of the loop. So outside the body of the loop, what do I want to do? I immediately want to return the valid integer. So actually my function is going to return an int value. You get my point? So can you see this code is now inside a separate function, and I have written it in such a way that I can reuse it as many times as I want to. You get my point? So instead of me having to write this here, I can just say here I'm going to call my function, which is get valid integer, and then I'm going to specify what kind of prompt message do I want to appear to the user. So at this particular moment, my prompt message is going to be enter your age. You see, this is my prompt message. You see, and this function is going to return whatever valid integer. You see, if the user enters the wrong integer, we are using an infinite loop to keep on prompting him, and so on until when he finally enters a correct integer. And at that particular moment, we are going to return it, and so we are going to save it here. You see? Yeah. So this is the prompt message we are passing. So it means this message will be displayed using cout. It will be displayed, and then we are putting a colon in front of that message. So that is why I didn't even have to put a colon here, because the function itself, we have designed it in such a way that it should take care of displaying a colon in front of our prompt message to make our program look cool. Okay, yeah, something like that. So it means in this, I can do the same thing here in the part of type. Okay, I don't have to rewrite this whole thing. I just have to call that function. Okay, so I can say here in the part of type, I can say get valid integer. Okay, but what prompt do I want to display to the user on this particular case? So since in this particular case I'm dealing with movie type, so the prompt that I want the user to see is enter a movie type. You see, 1 for regular, and 2 for what? For 3D. 2 for 3D. 2 for 3D. And again, I don't even need to put the colon, because this function here, I defined it in such a way that it is going to receive this prompt message, and then it is going to put a colon in front of that prompt message. It will display the prompt message, and it will take care of adding the colon in front of that prompt message. You see? Yeah. So you see, this is what we call code reuse. So instead of rewriting it, instead of taking what I wrote here and rewriting it here, I just call the function. This is what we call code reuse. So functions are not just useful for code modularity, they are useful also for code reuse. Okay, yeah. So if I run this program, you will see it will work just fine. You see, if I enter year 51 and I enter year 2, you see, it will work just fine. Okay, yeah. You see, so I hope you got the concept there. Okay, but also let me show you something. So if, for example, you want now to take this out as well and put it into a separate function, fine, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so you can declare a function here, maybe display ticket price. Okay, and then this function is going to contain this logic here. You see, yeah. So this function needs edge, right? It needs the edge. So here we're going to say it receives the edge of a person. Okay, yeah. And then if the edge is below 12, go ahead and display 7. No need to ask about the movie type. But if the edge is 12 or above, we are going to enter the else block, and in that particular point is when we need to display the prompt for movie type, because movie type is only relevant when the user is 12 or above. Okay, yeah. And then from there we are going to make a decision what price to display. You get my point? Yeah. So something like this. Again, it should just work. So here I can say display ticket price. It's going to receive the edge. Okay, something like this. You see, and again, you see that now we again it is modular. But also it is. But also we are using code reuse. Okay, we are enjoying the benefit of code reuse through what? Through functions. Okay, yeah. And again, it works. It works just fine. So if I enter 50 and I enter 1, yeah, it works just fine. Okay, yeah. So one thing you need to know here, guys, you have learned, I've just showed you how to prevent bad input. Okay, so someone may ask, is it worth it to do all this? Well, this is what I'm going to tell you. Okay, if I gave you a question, and inside that question I told you exactly that I want you to prevent bad input, and I told you that I also want you to prevent the case when the user enters alphabet in the place of integer. If I clearly told you that inside the question, then fine, you can do all this. Okay, but if I didn't tell you that inside the question, please don't complicate. Are we together, guys? Don't complicate. Okay, yeah, that's it. So this is good for learning purpose. I just showed you how to do it. It is good for learning purpose. It is good for your own personal practice. Okay, or maybe if you are hired somewhere to develop a certain program and you want that program to be very secure, to be very stable, then at that particular case it is totally okay to do all this. But if it's just a simple program and I didn't give you any instructions to complicate it, then don't complicate it. Just make it simple. Is that okay? Yeah. But should you use functions, or should you not use functions, or should you not use functions? It is always advisable to use functions. Okay, so I encourage you just use functions as many times as you can. Okay, yeah, it is worth it to use functions. In fact, every program from now on which you develop, try to use functions. Okay, if you don't use functions, I may not give you a wrong mark, but if I told you to use functions and you don't use them, then I will totally penalize you for that. Thank you for listening.